Hello. So I would like to talk about what we're not allowed to believe. Um, I know that might sound strange. Here's a picture of Jesus, and this is him with the Pharisees. Now, I want you to think of this as a man coming down and saying that things are not what they seem to be. So, this could be this happens not just with Jesus, but I use Jesus because he was the most truthful out of all the great figures in history. Thomas Edison, George Washington, Thomas Jefferson. People would argue certain philosophers, etc. But from a Christian perspective, I view him as the most truthful. But it could be anybody. It could be anybody else. But the point here is that we are taught to believe certain things as true. And he came down and it wasn't just that he said, this is what makes Jesus interesting and so compelling, is he came down and said, I'm not just going to tell you the truth, I'm going to tell you that I have authority. So that's what makes him so unique, I'm going to speak truth, but I also have authority. I have religious authority. I have authority from God to tell you what is truth and what is right. And that's what Jesus came down to do. And I want you to think about what he does for you, because people are not allowed to think about, to believe that there are conspiracies. So in other words, there's certain things you're told that you're not allowed to think. You're not allowed to think that the Holocaust was a hoax, that 9/11 was an inside job, the vaccines are bad, that there's poison in your food, that there's poison in the water, that pharmaceuticals are bad. Think about that. Like, you're not allowed to even think but to believe in conspiracies. Now this relates to Jesus. Jesus came into a world and told the people around him that it's okay to think differently. You've been told certain things, but they're not right. You've been told that it's okay to lust after a woman. I'm here to tell you it's not okay. You've been told it's okay to be angry. You've been told it's okay to not forgive. Well, I'm here to tell you that you need to forgive 70 times 70. So it's not like he invented anything. It's not like he came down and gave an invention or wrote a book that everybody could enjoy. He just came down and just told people, hey, what you're believing isn't true. Here's the truth. You need to forgive people. I'm the Son of God. If you follow me, you'll be happy, and you will come to God. You'll get to know God, because I am the Son of God. If you've seen me, you've seen God. So anyway, so there's all kinds of conspiracies in the conspiracy theories. Now, when a president tells you not to believe in a conspiracy, and you're like, yeah, you're right, I'm not going to believe in that. What does that say about you as far as your conditioning? So we go over here to social conditioning. So I just typed in social conditioning. And I believe that there are conspiracies. But I'm trying to figure out how to talk about conspiracies so that people are willing to just listen to them. In other words, I'm trying to figure out, well, how do I talk about my friends and family? How would I talk to the public to just point out that, hey, conspiracies might be going on, conspiracies might be true. One way I can think of it is, you just have to ask your question, why can I not think that? So let's just take one. So let's take the vaccines. Let's say that vaccines are poisonous, that they have poisons in them, and that they're part of a plan by some evil people in the world. Now, why can't you believe that? You see what I'm saying? That's the question that has to be asked. Well, why can't that be possible? In other words, you as an individual, so you need to separate yourself, put yourself on an island, and say, okay, I get to decide what's true in my life. I get to decide. There's 6 billion people on the planet, but I get to decide what I think. Now, what you do is kind of difficult, because you can't really choose everything in your life. You can't choose where you live, who you're around, who you work with. You can't choose everything, but you can choose what you think. And that is something that is actually fought against, because you remember when 9/11 happened, George Bush came out and said, let us not tolerate those who entertain conspiracy theories. Well, you as an individual, how do you feel about that? The president said you're not even allowed to think that. But you as an individual have to decide. This is as a human, all you have to decide is if something is possible. That's it. And that is what Jesus said. Jesus said, if you have faith, all things shall be possible unto you. But also, that's the positive. The negative that you have to be realistic about is, are evil things possible from other people? So in other words, you as an individual, you as an individual have to decide if conspiracies are possible. And if they're not possible, you have to explain that to yourself. What I'm saying is, if you don't believe in conspiracies yourself, you'll never be comfortable with yourself. The universe won't make sense to you. The way that governments work, the way that news organizations work, will never be comfortable with you. And that's exactly how my life was. I was never comfortable with my understanding of politics, the way that news organizations work, the way that TV corporations work, the movie industry. I could never figure it out. I could never trust them, and I could never explain why, but now I know why. But what I'm saying, what I'm saying is, you have to believe. The first step to understanding conspiracies is you have to have the knowledge that conspiracies are possible. In other words, is it possible that there's poison in vaccines? Okay, yes, that's possible. Like in the universe, if you're looking at the big picture, it's possible to inject poison into somebody. Okay, so that's the first step. The next step is it possible? And then, so you just start with the easy stuff. Yes, that's possible. Is it possible to do it to 10 people? Yes. Is it possible to do it with 10,000? Is it possible for a government to do it? Well, yes. Is it possible for a worldwide organization? The answers are always yes when it comes to possible. Is it possible for the world to be deceived? Yes, it is. See, the people who want you to not believe in conspiracies, they'll say that many people, they'll say the numbers make it impossible, which is really weird. Like they'll say, well, 9/11 couldn't have happened because there's too many people in it. Well, what do you mean? Like why do you think that? Why do you think that if there had to be a lot of people involved in something, it couldn't have happened? In other words, the more numbers, the less likely it can happen. The more people that would have to be involved in a conspiracy, the less likely that conspiracy can happen. But you have to even question that, if that's even a rational argument, if that's even true. Now for Christians, they believe in the book of Revelation. The book of Revelation says the devil will deceive the whole world. In other words, the book of Revelation is teaching you something about conspiracy, about the nature of conspiracies. It's saying that numbers don't matter. That 5 billion people can be deceived all at once. There might be a small percentage who will never be deceived because they do their research and they believe in conspiracies, but the book of Revelation, Jesus is telling the people in the Bible that, hey, it's not going to be a matter of numbers. There's going to be so many people deceived that if you just go along with the population, you're going to be deceived and you're going to be a victim. Because ultimately, conspiracies are about victimhood, victimization. And so this would be your first starting point. Like 9/11, okay, the buildings came down. Conspiracy theorists believe that the buildings were rigged beforehand and that it was a controlled demolition. So you start with the first question that we go back to. Is it possible that the buildings in 9/11 were a controlled demolition? The answer is yes, and that doesn't matter. Your opinion doesn't matter. See, whenever you ask the question and the question is yes, like, could there be poisons in vaccinations? Well, yeah, there could be a poison in a shot that somebody gives to you. The answer is yes. Your opinion doesn't matter. Could the building have been a controlled demolition in 9/11? Yes. And that has nothing to do with your opinion. So that's where you start. If the answer is no, you're done. There's no argument. There's no point in arguing. Now, if you don't know the answer, then yeah, you can discuss that and debate it and stuff. So, usually the answer is always yes. Could this have happened? Could this conspiracy be true? The answer is usually yes.